Hey, this is Dirk Nowitzki, and you're listening to the Mavs Step Back Podcast.
I like this, TK. I like that. Yeah, it's the Mavericks, all about action. Don't do no acting, no Samuel Jackson. Dirk get the ball, you know that it's magic. Post move deadly, yeah, it get tragic. Look with the ball, yeah, it get nasty. He'll drop 30, don't gotta ask him. Got Chris Stapps, coach at the Adam, I spaz like Dallas. I thought I'm rapping, God. If Luka shoot the ball, you know that it's cash. But my boy still living the past. Now he got my boy Chris Stapps, looking like Dirk and Nash in the gap. They just want a ring, wanna fill the gap on your team head. I ain't talking hats, dang, go relax. Till they the champs, defense still coming with the cannabis flow.
Welcome back to another edition of the Step Back, a Mavs podcast. I'm Dalton Trigg. I'm joined as always by my co-host and DallasBasketball.com colleague, Matt Galatzan. We hope you guys enjoyed the NBA All-Star Weekend. A lot of festivities going on. We had a lot of Luka. We had a lot of Dirk. Some surprising moments from Dirk there in that All-Star game. Just a lot going on, a lot for us to go over and hash out here. That's what we'll start with here. Matt, let's start with that skills challenge. Remind me who you picked, and then I'll talk about who I picked, and we can go from there.
I think I picked Jokic over Luka in the final.
I remember that.
I think that's what I did. I mean, neither of them got to the finals, which I was fine with. The skills challenge is kind of the least intriguing of the three. It's kind of short and stupid, to be honest. But it was the perfect opportunity for Trae Young stans to kind of get their voices heard because he got to the finals and he got farther than Luka. But I don't remember who you picked.
I picked Trae Young. I told you that was going to happen.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I picked him to win it, and even though he didn't win it, he beat Luka in the second round, and that was enough to put Hawks Twitter into a frenzy, which, like I said, I knew that was going to happen in some fashion during that event. So it did happen. I picked Trae to win it. He would have won it. But Jason Tatum got him with a half-court shot.
Which was so pretty. I love that. That was so awesome.
Got the idea from Luka. You know, he was going up against Kyle Kuzma in the first round of that, and he attempted a half-court shot to beat him. He missed, but then he still got the three-pointer to knock him out in the first round. But, yeah, I picked Young. He didn't win it, but he did edge out Luka, which, you know, obviously, the Trae is better than Luka takes were starting to fly on Twitter after that.
Well, what was so funny about that was he looked like he didn't really, care one way or the other. He was just kind of, running around having fun. And, like when he tried the half-court shots, I think he tried that on every single run-through, didn't he?
He did. He did.
He was just out there to have fun. He didn't really care.
Yeah, because in the second, when he went up against Trae in the second round, he was falling behind a little bit, you know, because Trae's a little bit quicker.
And Luka's kind of thick.
Yeah, and he tried to make up for it with a half-court shot, but
yeah,
and the ball arrived at the rim before Trae's, but it didn't go in. But anyway, yeah, like you said, Luka, he was just there to have fun. He honestly did not care about going 110%. Like Kyle Kuzma did in the Rising Stars game. He wanted that MVP so bad. And that was another thing. You know, Trae Young, I believe he had 25 points and 10 assists in that game. And that was another thing that, that really got Hawks Twitter in an uproar.
Oh, man. Luka, did you see the mic'd up portion, the video of Luka during the skill?
Yes, it was incredible.
It was so great. He was just having fun. All he wanted to do was go out there and take the tip, and he was running around I'm Fox, watch me, I'm Fox, and throwing the ball around, and he was just screwing around and having fun like a 19-year-old would, and he still put up 13, 9, and 6, which is kind of insane.
Oh yeah, I mean, look. Trae Young is a great player. I think he's going to be excellent in Atlanta. But, it's inevitable. Every time these two players are on the court together against each other doing something, there's going to be these comparisons. And for the most part, I think Mavs Twitter, the Mavs fan base as a whole, it doesn't have to just be Twitter. That's just where I spend most of my time these days. But, the Mavs fan base as a whole, I think they've let go of the Trae Young stuff. I think it's more Atlanta holding on to it than anything else, but that's just my opinion.
Well, yeah, because the Mavericks, at least for the first half of the first season, look like they've won that part of the deal, and we're super happy with Luka. And the Trae caravan is just kind of looking for anything they can to say that they won the deal, when in reality, it's stupid to say it either way right now, because they're 19, 20 years old, whatever, and we won't know who actually won the deal for 5 or 10 years. And then you see people like Yoda on Twitter who just keep like trying to find ways to poke holes in Luka's game and stirring the crowd up, and it's just dumb.
Yeah, and we've mentioned Yoda a few times on here. For those of you who don't know who we're talking about, which if you're on Mavs Twitter, you do, but his name's Rashad Phillips. He's an Orlando guy. He has some... I'll be nice. He has some interesting takes on Luka Doncic and some interesting takes on Trae Young, and he uses a lot of weird hashtags. But anyway, you should go check it out and form your own opinion on it. But
he thinks that Alonzo Trier is a better player than Luka, and he goes on Colin Cowherd's show, so his opinion's already kind of, terrible to begin with. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't want to give him any more life than we already have, so let's move on to the next subject.
Yes, the next event. So we're 0 for 2 combined, so neither one of us picked the correct winner in the skills challenge. And then the next challenge was the 3-point contest, and I picked Seth Curry to win this event, and he was I think he was third from the bottom. He didn't have a really good night, but
Dirk
he was
beat him.
Third from the bottom. yeah, Dirk beat him out. For those of you that weren't keeping score at home, Dirk had 17 points, which tied Damian Lillard. Seth Curry had 16, Kemba Walker 15, Chris Middleton 11. Chris Middleton had a Wes Matthews 2017 outing there. I remember Wes. Was
he in that contest?
He was.
I totally forgot that.
Yeah, I remember being hyped for that, and then he went out and got 11, and I was just deflated. I was at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Wow. What a terrible what a terrible pick by the NBA.
But anyway, so Dirk had himself a respectable outing in the 3-point contest, and like I said, I picked Seth Curry. You, Matt, you picked Joe Harris to win it, and lo and behold, that's what happened. How do you feel about this pick?
Well, like I mentioned in the last pod, the Nets are my League Pass team. So I've seen them play a few times more than most other teams, obviously besides the Mavericks. And he always struck me as a really good shooter. I figured, he'd never been in an all-star event before, so I thought he'd be a little motivated. And also, we both have a beard, so in solidarity, I went with my bearded brethren there. And he killed it, man. He really did. He did much better than... I wasn't confident he was going to win. I picked him just for fun, kind of, but it was a little educated. But not, who really knows in competitions like that? But man, he was good. I was shocked.
Well, listen. I obviously haven't watched the Nets as much this season as you have, but I knew that Joe Harris was a good 3-point shooter, and I knew he would probably do well in the contest, but he scored at least 26. I know 2 times.
He got to 28 once, didn't he?
I'd have to look it up to see. But the thing that got me, he went up against Steph Curry, in the finals of that contest, and I was just thinking like, okay, yeah, he's had a good run tonight, but I didn't think he would be beating out arguably the best 3-point shooter in NBA history. But I mean, it happened.
He went first, didn't he? In the final.
No. Oh yeah. Joe Harris did.
He went first.
Joe Harris did.
And then I thought Steph was just going to catch up to him, and like once he got to his money ball rack, he was just going to fly past him, and I was going to be like, shit. But he held on, man. I was really surprised, and I was really happy that Steph didn't add another trophy to his million trophies that he has. It's, Joe got something, and he probably feels a lot better about that than any of the other players. Like, especially Steph would have winning that award. So it was cool. And another thing that I thought was really cool during that event was that Dirk actually made it around the entire thing faster than Damian Lillard.
Yeah, he had 2 seconds to spare.
I was
proud of the big guy.
Yeah, he made it. He wasn't too stiff. He had an air ball, which wasn't pretty, but he got in a pretty good rhythm there, and he looked pretty good.
That was one of the first moments. Yeah, well, it's really one of the only moments where I've ever doubted that Dirk could do something. Because in my mind, I was just thinking, because we've watched him all year, the way he moves and the way he's moving in his 21st season. I didn't think he had a chance to make it all the way around, but he did, and then I felt the shame of doubting the GOAT, and he made it around. He was respectable. He scored 17 points, and that wasn't even his best moment of the weekend.
It was not. We'll get to that in a minute, though.
But it was good for Joe Harris. It was good for the Nets. You like a good underdog story, like you said. It's not like Steph needs any more trophies right now anyway, so that was a good story, and you nailed it. You called him the dark horse and predicted him to win it.
He wasn't the dark horse, man. He was the black hole horse. Nobody picked him.
So we're going to move on from the three-point contest now to the actual All-Star game. And Dirk, he only played 4 minutes in this game, and it all came in the first half. But that was some of the best 4 minutes of Dirk's career that I've personally seen. And Rick Carlisle agrees with me. He said the same thing. He said it was definitely one of his best moments, really, watching basketball. Dirk scored 9 points. He went 3 for 3, all on very deep threes.
That his teammates did a nice job setting him up with too.
Definitely, yeah. I think D'Angelo Russell screened for him one time. Russell Westbrook screened for him on one. I mean, he was letting it rip, and it was like vintage. Just those 4 minutes sparked a whole conversation, with me, you, a lot of other people, thinking, hey, maybe Dirk can come back next season.
Well, what it kind of reminded me of is, do you ever play with like the classic teams on 2K? And
Every now and then.
You can play with like the 2006 Mavericks or 2003 Mavericks or whatever. And there's like those teams with Nash and Dirk, like young Dirk, and you could just like hang out on the perimeter with Dirk and just launch threes all day, and they always go in. That's what it kind of reminded me of for that. Like he looked like 2003 young Dirk, just like launching and everything going in, and it was so nice. It was
vintage.
The only crime was that they only let him play 4 minutes. Like D-Wade played in the second half. There's no reason Dirk shouldn't have played in the second half. Hell, they might have had a better chance of holding on to their lead if he would have kept that shooting stroke up. But
he wasn't even hitting. He wasn't even hitting rim. It was all net, and he was a good 3-4 feet out beyond the 3-point line too. I mean, he was feeling it. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if they just thought, okay, he's a perfect 3 of 3. This would be a good place to end his last All-Star game, and they just want him to stay perfect, or I don't know what the thinking was behind it. I Maybe Dirk didn't want to play anymore after that. I mean, I I don't know, but I agree with you. I think they probably would have ended up winning that game if they kept him in. Keep their foot on their throats.
Well, I don't know about winning it necessarily. That might be a little much, but I mean,
think about it. When Dirk was in, they were pretty close to a 20-point lead, if not 20 points.
Well, I know, but eventually it would have caught up with him, at least in the fourth quarter, when he can't stay in front of anybody. But I think they should have at least let him play in the third quarter. And if he didn't want to, that's one thing. Like, I understand not wanting to. Like, I had my moment, and really that's what we both wanted for him, was for him to have a good moment. And like I talked about the Magic Johnson moment in the last podcast, and it wasn't like the same part of the game, but it was kind of similar. It was just because in that All-Star game, Magic Johnson made like a couple of threes in a row and like set his team on fire, and that's almost exactly what Dirk did. And I was like, all right, I've got that. I'm happy. But then the rest of the time I was bitching on Twitter because I just like, put Dirk back in, you cowards. Like, you
stopped watching. You text me and was like, text me if Dirk comes back in the game.
Yeah, I was so pissed. Like, I got so mad that I turned on True Detective season 3 and stopped watching in the fourth quarter because I was like, I don't even want to watch it. Dirk's not going to play anymore. Like, I was so mad.
Well, what made it so awesome is how involved the crowd was in Charlotte, because it started with the first one. He swished the first one and the crowd went nuts. And then it wasn't 20 seconds later, it might have been less than that, he swishes another one. And then the crowd gets even louder, and Marv Albert's just going nuts, with his vintage call on TNT. It was awesome, man. I'm glad I got to witness that. It was a great way. I said on the last one it was going to be hard for him to surpass that moment he had with Steph. In that last All-Star game when he had the alley-oop. But, he outdid that. This was a great moment.
Yeah, I was really
great way to send him out.
I was really happy about it. It was really all I could have asked for. I was being selfish because I just wanted more. And it is what it is.
Yeah, and the thing with me, I kind of feel like this could catapult Dirk into having a really good rest of this season. There's 25 games left. He's only played 26 games so far, but he's been shooting the ball better lately. He was absolutely on fire during that game. He did well in the 3-point contest. I'm almost wondering if this is going to give him a little bit more of an energy boost for these last few games, if we're going to see more of that kind of Dirk the rest of this season. I sure hope so. I wouldn't bet any money on it, because obviously there's a lot better defense played in real NBA games than All-Star Weekend, but I would really like to see him start making more of his shots.
Yeah, I don't know how much energy it can give him. He's 41. I'm sure it was great for him to have those moments, and to it wasn't just like the on the court stuff either. It was like he and Luka were also kind of the stars of the show when it was like the stuff they play on the Jumbotron during the game, like the guess that tune and the thing where they were wearing the headphones and trying to guess what each other were saying and all that stuff. And it was overall just a really great experience for him. And
and if you think about it, these last 25 games, if he doesn't even know if this is it for him, because he kept the door open yet again on All-Star Weekend, said he hasn't made a decision yet. He'll reassess it at the end of the year, see how his body feels, if he's still having fun, all that. So, let's say he really, truly doesn't know if he's going to retire this summer. And I think that's correct. I don't think he's actually made a decision yet. So, knowing that, and, having that uncertainty there, even within his own mind, to me, I feel like he would have a little bit extra oomph, these last 25 games. Because if this is it, then that's all there is, it's just over after unless they make the playoffs, which we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But if they don't, this is it for him. And I think he's going to just lay it all out there and see where he's at this offseason.
Well, I think he's going to do that either way, just because he's so competitive. And I just don't think that – I guess I just can't imagine this being – like, as much as we hear it on the radio and they try and force the D-Wade and Dirk going out together thing at the All-Star game and all that stuff that makes me want to –
Don't you hate that?
It makes me want to puke. But, like, just let the guy make the decision on his own and stop trying to force it. I can't sit here and believe that it's his last season unless he is sitting up on the podium and conducting his retirement press conference. Like, I just won't believe it, because to me, even before the All-Star game, it kind of seemed like he was getting back into his rhythm a little bit, so to speak. Like, his body looked like it started moving around a little bit better. He was starting to hit his shots again. He was kind of – because if you remember last year, it took him a while to get into the flow of everything before he started being as efficient as he was. And he's kind of starting to creep back in that direction now, and then the All-Star game performance kind of, I guess, made that a little bit more noticeable. But now that he's had the All-Star break and he'll have these last 25 or so games to go, I think we'll probably be able to tell a little bit as the end of the season gets closer. But right now, it's just like it's hard to envision him hanging it up. I guess it just makes me sad. I don't know. I can't picture it in my head that he's going to retire.
Well, here's another thing for you, and I think we both agree here that this isn't high on Dirk's priority list, but it is a cool thing to know he is really close to achieving. But he's 110 points away from passing Wilt Chamberlain and reclaiming the number 6 spot on the NBA's all-time scoring list. And we did the math before this, and he's got to average 4.4 points per game over these last 25 games. He's got to play all 25, average that much. He's averaging 4.7 points on the year, so it's definitely doable. And like you said, I mean, he's been heating up a little bit lately. Let's just take a look. When they played at New York, well, even before that, when they played the Clippers, he scored 8 points on 3 of 6 shooting. Since that game, he had 8 points in that game. A few games later against Toronto, he had 7, had 14 against the Knicks, 7 the very next night at Detroit. He's had 8 points, 8 points against Charlotte, and then against Miami right before the All-Star break, he had 12 points on 5 of 14 shooting. So, I mean, he's starting to score much more than he did earlier in the season. So that's a good sign. I think he'll definitely pass Wilt. I don't know if that'll be a motivation factor for him. Probably not, but it's something that's coming.
Maybe not for him personally, but I'll tell you, if he starts to get close in the last 5 or so games or whatever, they're gonna at least Rick Carlisle and everybody's going to be like, all right, we need to get him this last milestone and send him out. If we're not going to make the playoffs, send him out on some kind of high note. Can you imagine if in, say, his final game at the American Airlines Center, he's 5 points away or 10 points away from passing Wilt? They will be drawing up plays for him all night long and trying to get him to get that record
awesome.
in front of the home crowd. And really, if you think about it, anytime you can pass Wilt Chamberlain in the record book, it's like climbing a mountain.
Is it? Look, I almost want it to be more than say he's 5 points away. I almost want it to be more than that. So you have the potential for a moment like he had at American Airlines Center when he got to 30,000 points. because he went nuts in that first half, and I forgot how many points he needed, but he ended up scoring like close to 20. In that first half, it was a vintage moment. They were drawing up plays for him. Even though he's a shell of his former self at this point, he still has the ability to have these magical moments when the opportunity arrives. So I really hope we get one of those moments, whether it's at AAC or even if it's at the last game of the year in San Antonio. That would be pretty cool too.
Well, yeah, that's the thing though, is like if it happens, I really want to be there. So I want it to be at the American Airlines. I mean, selfishly, but I'm sure everybody wants it to happen at home too. And
Oh, come on, you don't want to take a road trip to San Antonio,
dude? No, I'm good. But
you're like Charles
actually,
Barkley.
Yeah.
You really hate San Antonio that much?
One of my buddies is going, but I'll never step foot in the San Antonio arena unless it's for a playoff game. But so 4 of the last 6 games of the season are at the American Airlines Center, so it'll probably happen in that stretch. I hope it happens in the first of the two games in a row against Memphis, personally. Or at least he gets, say he gets within 10 or so there. I really hope they hold him out for the next game against Memphis so he can try and set the record at home. Or if he gets to 2 points away or something. Because it would mean so much to everybody if he did it at home. At least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think no matter what happens, it's going to be a really great moment. He's going to get a standing ovation whether it's at home or not. Again, it might not be his last season, so.
But I'm just saying, in the event that it is, you want that thing to happen at home. At least I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, you want as many moments as you can because we're right here towards the end, and like you said, it's a selfish thing. Really, you want to squeeze out every little drop you can. And good thing for us, there's 25 games left. We're going to get to see a lot of Dirk down the stretch. And like I said, hopefully what he did during that All-Star game is, a good sign for the rest of the season. Maybe he'll start picking up that scoring pace and, do something unprecedented for somebody in their 21st season. So we'll see.
Yeah, let's hope so.
So now, and we've talked about this a little bit over the past few days, but we figured we'd give you guys some of our favorite Dirk stories. We asked everybody on Twitter, what their favorite Dirk story or Dirk moment was, and the consensus, not surprisingly, was the 2011 championship. He finally got over the hump, and it helped that it was against Miami again. D-Wade was involved. So that was the overwhelming, favorite moment from, the answers we got from all of you. But Matt, what's a Dirk story you want to tell our listeners about?
Well, so when I was thinking about this, I kind of had 2 thoughts come into mind. One was, okay, which is my favorite Dirk game over his entire career, the one that sticks out most to me. And it was kind of tough to narrow down, and I thought about a couple of the performances in his playoff run, specifically against Oklahoma City, where he just diced all those guys. When they had Harden and Westbrook and KD, and he just took all of them to school because they were there a little ahead of schedule, and he was just kind of there to remind them nah, guys, this is my year. You guys can sit back. You can have the league for the next 10 or 15 years. I'm taking this one. And he just decimated them that entire series. And then there was the 30,000 point game. I love that. Obviously, I was there. And it was one of the coolest things I've ever witnessed. Even watching it as far up as the press box, it was still cool, and it's something I'm never going to forget. And the ovation that he got and and all that stuff was just, and even like the atmosphere just in the press box alone was awesome. Like, you know, everybody tries to be professional in those kinds of situations, but in that one in particular, considering how long he's been around the franchise and really how admired he is around the entire NBA in general, it's hard not to get invested and cheer him on in that moment.
Yeah. I can guarantee you every other Mavs media member was right there along with you.
Oh yeah, I was definitely not alone. It was cool. So those were kind of the two in-game moments that came to mind for me. But I also have kind of a personal one, and I doubt Dirk even remembers this, but it's still one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me in my life. When I first started on this job working for Fish and DallasBasketball.com, the first event that I ever covered in person, that I was ever credentialed for, because I started in the second half, really late in the second half of the Rondo season is when I started this job. So, like, since I've been covering the Mavericks, they haven't been good.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. And that's when it all kind of really started going downhill. That was kind of
you're probably thinking, like, what the heck did I get into?
Yeah. And I was like, you know, that was kind of a Band-Aid, and then it didn't work out. But I wasn't credentialed because I started so late in the season. And the first thing that I got credentialed for was Dirk's celebrity baseball game. And I was super nervous. I showed up to this thing, and Fish was there, but he was busy running around talking to all the people that he talks to all the time, because, you know, he knows everybody, and he was doing some Facebook Live thing with Skin, I think, or something. I can't remember. And I'm just sitting there nervous, and on the field, it's June, it's super hot, and I'm sweating, and I'm just, you know, my head's going around in circles. And everybody starts freaking out and, like, looking in my direction. I'm like, you know, oh my God, like, do I look like an idiot? Like, what's going on? And, like, I turn around, and Dirk's, you know, right in my face, and he bumps into me. It was like when I turned, I bumped right into him. And I kind of fell back a little bit, and he, like, grabbed my shoulder, and he pulled me, like, back to my feet, kind of. And he was like, hey, man, are you okay? And I was like, yes. Like, I mean, people have to understand, like, I do this job, but I grew up a Mavericks fan, and Dirk has been my favorite athlete since I was, you know, since Jordan retired, really, is when, I mean, it kind of happened perfectly. Like, Jordan retired in 98, and then Dirk started playing in 98, 99, and that was kind of the transition. And then he, like, just pulled me back to my feet and, like, made sure I was okay, and, like, introduced himself. He said, hi, I'm Dirk. And I was like, yeah, I know. It's nice to meet you. And he was like, all right, well, I'll see you out there. And then
That's pretty cool.
And then,
That's
like,
pretty cool.
And then 5 seconds later, I'm standing 2 feet from Dirk with my microphone in his face for the first time for me ever doing anything media related. And it was just like, it was, for me personally, it was one of the coolest experiences ever. It doesn't seem like a lot, like, on paper, but to me personally, it meant so much. And
well,
it
you
was,
did a good job portraying it, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it was surreal, and it was just like, I can't believe I'm actually meeting this person. And now I get to see him every time I go to the American Airlines Center, and every practice that I go to, he's there, and I see him, and it's like, but for whatever reason, every time I see him, it's still like, oh, holy shit, that's Dirk. Even with, like, with new players like Luka and everybody, it's not like that. But with Dirk, it's still kind of like, oh, hey, that's Dirk. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, you know, we can have our media credentials, and, you know, we're trying to get stories for DB, and, you know, do all this actual work related stuff. But when it all comes down to it, you know, we're MFFLs, like, like the rest of these fans. We grew up watching Dirk. To me, he's been a idol for me for as long as I can remember. I'll branch off of what you were just saying. As far as my favorite Dirk games, it's two games that I was there in person for as a fan. The very first Mavs game that I attended in person was Game 5 of the 2005 Western Conference Finals. It was 2000. Which way? It was the year. It was 2006 at that point, but you know what I mean. It was the 2005-2006 season.
Mm-hmm.
The year they went to the finals the first time. So, my family, we have a utility trailer business, family business, and we were always traveling out to the Dallas area to pick up loads of trailers on weekends and stuff like that. And we were coming through downtown Dallas, one afternoon, or it was getting close to game time, I guess. We saw a billboard, and it said that the Mavs were playing the Suns at a certain time, and it was getting close to time. So, we ended up going to it. And sure enough, that was the game where Dirk dropped 50. And I was, we were sitting in the nosebleeds. We could barely see, but the atmosphere was incredible. I'd been watching the Mavs since the Nash and Finley days, but that was my first actual game I attended, and it was just incredible. Like, I was already a Dirk fan. I was a super fan after that. It was awesome. And then the second game was Game 4 of the NBA Finals in 2011, which was the Dirk fever game. I know some people call it a flu game, but it was a fever game. But so that was fun. It was a low-scoring game. As far as the game itself, it wasn't really that exciting, but just the storyline, and they tied up the series and everything. That was pretty awesome for me.
And then LeBron and D-Wade made fun of him, and then he proceeded to torch them the next few games after they made fun of him.
Right. Unfortunately, we couldn't stay for, the Game 5 of that series before heading back home. But trust me, I was fully invested that whole entire series. It was just awesome. I was livid when I saw LeBron and Wade, made fun of Dirk, basically saying that he wasn't really sick when they were, the biggest drama queens in the NBA at the time, which LeBron still kind of is. Shoot, Wade is. He's doing a world tour documentary right now. But yeah, it was awesome. So that's my two favorite Dirk games. As far as a personal story, and I've been going down to New Orleans for years, my wife and I, because we live about an hour and a half away from New Orleans, and it's just, it's easier than driving 7 hours out to Dallas. But before I started doing credential work and everything, we would just go as fans. They only play in New Orleans 2 times a year, so we'd save up our money, and we'd get some really good seats, close to behind the away bench. And it was in New Orleans, so it didn't break the bank or anything, because it's the Pelicans. But we had some interactions with Dirk over the years, and it got to the point where he recognized us sitting in the same spot every time. And so at a certain point, my wife was my fiance at the time. We felt comfortable enough giving him a wedding invitation. So, and we didn't have any expectations for it or anything. My wife thought it would be cool if we just gave him a wedding invitation. So sure enough, we give it to him. He tells us, "Oh, that's so cool, and when are you getting married?" And just acted like, how he is. He's just really nice, and He'll actually strike up a conversation with you and everything. So then he left, went back to the locker room. We didn't expect anything of it. Well, about 2-3 weeks later, my wife sends me a Snapchat, and she got a package in the mail, and it's our wedding invitation, and it says, "Congrats, all the best," and it's signed by Dirk, just a big Dirk signature at the bottom of it. And I was just like, you have got to be kidding me. This is unreal. Because, I mean, it was unprompted. That's what makes it so special to us and so cool, is that we just wanted to give him the invitation. We expected nothing from, he could have gone back in the locker room in New Orleans and just tossed it in the trash, or, tossed it in his locker and forgotten about it or something like that. But
that's what most NBA players would have done, probably.
I know. And I mean, to think of it, and you're on the road, so he had to have taken it back with him to Dallas, taken the time sometime in that 2-week span to sit down, write a note on it, sign it, and then to send it to the address that was on the, the return address that was on the invitation or whatever. So, I mean, it was just a really cool moment. We've got that thing framed, of course. It's in our house. I mean, it's just really cool because, I mean, you've got the guy that you grew up watching and you've been a super fan of forever, and now you're covering him, as a credentialed media member. He basically blessed your marriage.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
So I mean that's my personal moment. I mean, we weren't expecting it. So that it happened the way it did, I mean, it's just a cool story. If you follow me on Twitter, you've heard this story before, and you can find that picture on there. But I mean, it was mind blowing.
Did you ever see? I'm sure you have, but the Dirk documentary, The Perfect Shot, that he did about Holger, where they have that part where he's answering fan mail or whatever with the lady that he's so close with in the Mavs front office, whose name escapes me right now. But
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but it shocked me when I saw this. He sits down and with this lady who helps him, and they sit there and individually answer and go through every piece of mail. And there is so much thought behind each autograph that he puts in there, and it's it's impossible to find another NBA player who does it like that. He cares so much about his fans and nothing about himself. He wants his fans to be happy, and he wants to make sure they have the best experience possible, because he knows that he's blessed with everything that he's had, with his contracts in the NBA and the position that he's in, and he wants to be able to give back to the fans. And for him to do things like that is just incredible.
It really is. And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of players in the NBA, that take a ton of time for their fans, and they'll do, similar things here and there. But this is one of the best players in NBA history. Just to give an example, and maybe he does this and it's just not talked about. Maybe it's not reported or anything like that, but I just can't see LeBron James, taking time out of his season and going to the corporate office and, opening fan mail and signing stuff and, sending it back to fans and stuff. Because, I mean, our guy Bobby Karalla earlier this season, Dirk did it this season, just randomly it was an off day that they had. Dirk went to the corporate office. He opened up fan mail, signed some stuff. That's just what he did, and it was during the season, and it was on an off day. He could have done anything. I mean, he cares. Like you said, he really cares about his fans. It shows. That's why most of us have such a emotional attachment to him, and we don't want it. We don't want it to end. And it's really special what he has with his fan base and with the city of Dallas, and it's going to be sad to see him go.
Yeah, I don't know. It with, like you mentioned, LeBron would probably just like, I mean, he probably just pours a glass of wine and gets in the limo and like heads up to the arena and sits in the box with Magic for a while and hangs out and then goes downstairs and rubs elbows with people, and you know, really he doesn't have he might, for all I know. I don't cover LeBron, but I haven't come across another NBA player who has the same kind of thoughtful nature and selflessness that Dirk has on and off the court, and like the way he structures his contracts, the way he treats his fans, just literally everything he does is just like model class.
Well, and here's the thing. It's my hope, we're off to a good start. It's my hope that Luka is going to be kind of, you know, the same thing that Dirk has been as far as caring for fans and, you know, going the extra mile and everything. Because, you know, it's like earlier this season when the Mavs played at Golden State and he crashed into that kid underneath the basket, and he's been crashing into a lot of people underneath the basket.
Yeah, those people need to get out of the way.
But that one kid in particular, he hit him pretty hard, and the kid was crying and everything, and you know, he really cared, you know, to make sure that kid was okay. And then after the game, he takes off his jersey, signs it for the kid, and gives it to him. You know, I mean, it's stuff like that. You know, that's Dirk-like, in my opinion. You know, I've only been to New Orleans 2 times since Luka's been a Maverick, obviously, because they played both times in December this year. But when we were there, and I was on credential this time, I wasn't there as a fan, but just observing from a distance how he interacted, you know, with the fans, reaching over the rail, and, you know, he waited there and he signed every single autograph that he could, or that he was within reach for, and before he went back to the locker room. So, I mean, to me, it gives me the same Dirk vibes I've been getting for so many years. So I think we've got another good one going forward.
Well, yeah, and let's not forget the hundreds of Slovenians or whatever that came for that stretch of games before the All-Star break. After the
was so awesome.
Yeah, after the last game, they almost ran over me actually when they were pulling out of the parking lot in their vans, and I was walking back to my car, and I was like, "Who the hell are all these people in the vans?" And they're it's the Slovenians. But he hung out after the last game that they played in Dallas for the All-Star break, and just talked to them for like 20 or 30 minutes and just answered their questions and took pictures with them and stuff. Very, very Dirk thing to do.
It's going to be a good 20 years plus, hopefully, with Luka. I mean, like I said, he's very Dirk-like in the way he approaches his fans, and I think he's gonna end up rooting himself in the community eventually the same way that Dirk has. I don't know how far he's gotten into that so far, because, I mean, obviously he just came over overseas and is still getting used to America and Dallas and everything.
Well, he's got a mural now.
Right. He's got a mural. Like I said, I don't know how much he's started doing as far as community work and everything in Dallas, but I think he's really going to, you know, take the torch from Dirk, and, you know, similar to what Harrison Barnes was doing in Dallas too before he got traded. But yeah, I think it's a good thing. It's going to be a good thing for many years to come. Anyway, moving on from that, we'll move on from the sentimental stuff before we start cutting onions in here. The Mavs, as mentioned earlier, have 25 games left this season. They are currently 5 games out of the final playoff spot in the West. The Clippers are 32-27. The Mavs are 26-31. They're only 4 games out of that final playoff spot in the loss column. And the thing that gives me hope is they still play the Clippers one more time, so that's a chance to make up a full game. And they play the Sacramento Kings 2 more times the rest of the season, which is a chance to potentially, gain 2 full games on them. And then obviously you've got the Kings playing the Warriors tomorrow and the Lakers playing the Rockets tomorrow. So games like that can help you out too. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are marking the Mavs off right now. They're saying there's absolutely no chance that they can make the playoffs, and everybody's looking forward to the draft or the draft lottery to see if we keep our pick or not. But I don't know, Matt. I'm looking at what's left on the schedule. I'm looking at the days of rest of what's left on the schedule and the opportunities that'll be there. I think they have a chance to make a legitimate playoff push in these last 25 games.
Okay, I don't.
Well.
I'm sorry. I always enjoy your optimism. It makes me feel better about life. But when I look at the schedule, I see...
Matt, I got to tell you, it's not easy. I know you think it's easy. It's not easy being this optimistic, but I mean, somehow I manage. Anyway.
There's a shirt that the Ringer makes on their store that says "Irrational Confidence Guy," and I want to get it just for you. But
I'll expect that. My birthday's coming up in April, so
okay.
If you want to send me
I will keep that in mind. But your confidence isn't totally irrational in this situation. It's. I mean, there's 25 games left. They're basically 4 games back, in the loss column or whatever. But when I look at it, I see the first 4 games out of the gate, coming back from the All-Star break are against playoff teams. And then they have Memphis, and then they have another playoff team in Brooklyn. And then there's another stretch where they play 3 playoff teams in a row. And then there's another stretch where they play 6 in a row. So it's going to be really tough. Like, especially this stretch where they have to play at Portland, at Sacramento, at Golden State, Sacramento, at Miami, at Oklahoma City, and then Philadelphia is going to be really tough. So that doesn't give me a lot of hope. And then also there's the issues that we've been noticing. I'm still a fan of the trade they made, obviously, because Porzingis.
Well, that's what I was going to say too. I mean, I know it seems to be, I've seen people say that, well, the team is actually worse after the trade, but it's, the way they're playing it seems like they're better. Whatever. To me, I think they're definitely a better team. It was like a addition by subtraction kind of thing when they traded DeAndre and Wes Matthews. I mean, obviously you miss DeAndre Jordan's rebounding, but
that's what I was going to get at was DeAndre. It's not even necessarily DeAndre. It's just the rebounding. Like right. The rebounding has been killing them, and
it's going to have to be a team effort the rest of the year.
And there was times after the trade up to the All-Star break where they were just getting decimated on the boards, and it was killing them. And that's the one spot where, like, you can really say that they got a little bit of a short end of the trade. I mean, even if Porzingis was playing and you had him in there, obviously it'd be a different story, which will be the case next year. But Maxey is not a great rebounder. He's a great rim protector. He's not a great rebounder, and he's not. Even though he's starting, he's playing like 20, 25 minutes a game. He's not playing real starter minutes. And they missed that kind of big bully body inside, which I thought they were going to go for somebody in the buyout market. Maybe they still will. I don't know who's left. But
what I was going to say, too, is if you look, after they made that trade with the Knicks, they played the very next night in Detroit. And then they played Cleveland, and then I believe the first game that they had their new guys was against Charlotte.
Yes.
So they got their new guys against Charlotte. So they've had 1, 2, 3, 4. They've had 5 games with their new guys. So what they've probably, before this extended All-Star break, they probably had 5, 6 practices together, or is that being generous?
That's probably being a little generous, I would think. I mean, because I think we both get the emails from Sarah that says, practice is such and such, and it's at this time or whatever. And I haven't gotten very many of those since the trade.
Right. So I mean, they've got these new players. You've sent out 4 players, including Barnes, because that happened during that Charlotte game. The first game they had their new guys, and you've had very little practice time to get these guys up to speed and comfortable and everything. So I mean, the chemistry is only going to get better, the rest of the season, in my opinion. I think they'll play really well with Doncic. They signed back Mejri, which is. We've talked about it at DallasBasketball.com. We can say confidently that the only reason Salah is back is, because of Luka, but they really needed him back because of the rebounding issue. And I think
he started against Miami.
He did. He started against Miami. He was, a little rusty, and obviously he hasn't been playing much this season, but I think that, Mejri could get it going in these last 25 games too. He's got the chemistry with Luka.
Well, he also just plays with so much energy.
So much energy. He blocks so many shots. He doesn't grab as many rebounds as DeAndre did, obviously, but he can get you between 8 to 10 rebounds a game if he gets enough minutes. So, I mean, he's just a tough player. And I think he'll make up for that lack of rebounding we've seen since the Porzingis trade. But
partially.
Right. So I mean I'm not gonna just be all, rainbows and sunshine here. It's not likely that the Mavs are going to make the playoffs, but just looking at the schedule, taking into consideration, the lack of practice time that they had, and just knowing that I think Luka's going to be even better down the stretch after having a chance to, rest his legs and go to Cancun and, just lay on the beach a little bit, because he needed to rest. His usage rate has been steadily going up, and he needed it more than anybody else. So all things considered, I can really see them making a push here.
Well, I mean, I agree that the Luka getting rest thing is probably the most important part of it all, because he looked like he was kind of beginning to hit a wall there, especially against Houston and Miami. He still almost put up a triple-double in both games.
Yeah, he was still putting up good numbers. It's just his shooting percentage wasn't great.
Yeah, and you could tell he was getting a little frustrated out there. He just looked tired. And when you've had a top 10 usage rate over, the amount of time that he's had that usage rate, it'll start to wear on you if you haven't played in the NBA before, especially, because let's be real, this is the hardest league in the world it's the best league in the world for a reason. It's the best athletes. You play the hardest on a nightly basis. He did it in Europe, and I know that wasn't against Duke or UNC or whatever, but that was really tough competition. I mean, I think it's better personally, but
I agree.
But he doesn't have experience necessarily playing this kind of rugged schedule, and even like the traveling is more difficult in the United States and in Spain. So this is all new to him. So to be able to go to the All-Star game and just kind of or the All-Star weekend and just relax, have fun, screw around on the court, I'm fucks, do all that stuff, and then go to Cancun and hang out with his buddies for a couple days or whatever. It's going to go a long way, I think. It's just the tough schedule down the stretch is, considering he doesn't have much on his side other than, Tim Hardaway Jr. and, the other pieces that they have left after that trade. I do think they're better in most regards. I think they're better defensively. I think they're better shooting. I think they have more playmakers on the floor. But it's just the rebounding gap and a couple other little things here and there. Their chemistry obviously isn't as good, and that'll get better. But I just don't know if 25 games is enough time to make that drastic of a recovery, in my opinion, at least.
Well, we'll find out soon enough, and it'll start Friday when they take on the Denver Nuggets and Luka's friend Juan Hernan Gomez, who he went to Cancun with over the All-Star break, and he was hanging out with his buddy there. But yeah, it's going to be a challenge. The first game out of the gates, these last 25 games, you have to go up against Jokic and Paul Millsap and Mason Plum. A bunch of big guys on that team that get a lot of rebounds. So it's going to be tough, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, they have to play Denver twice over that last 25.
Yeah, they played at Denver the first time. They actually played them really well. Should have won that game, in my opinion. But
yeah, that was one during that stretch where they lost. I guess it was. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So after that game, they had 6 games in a row that were decided by 4 points or less, and that game really was. It was closer than 8 points. Like, it came down to the very end.
Right.
So that was a really tough stretch for them. Had they gotten a couple more of those, like say against that OT one against Portland, or that second loss to New Orleans, which really pissed me off. I'd feel a lot better about this, but that's kind of the story of the Mavs season, is just like the road losses and the close losses and games they should have had, or if like one thing went the other way,
right,
they would have been in a much better position, but that's just where they are right now.
Yep, and they'll start things out by playing the second best team in the Western Conference in the Denver Nuggets. But the good thing is they're playing them at home. The Mavs are 20-9 at home this season, and maybe we'll get some rested Luka magic in that first game and have it snowball from there. At least that's my hope. But we'll see how it goes, and we'll come back on here next week and recap the games the Mavs have played to start out this final stretch. But that'll do it for this episode of the Step Back. We appreciate you guys coming here and listening to us on a weekly basis. Can't thank you enough for the support. As always, we're on every single major podcast platform. We're on YouTube now. Matt got us set up on that here recently, so you can check us out there as well. Matt, anything you want to add?
No, just keep spreading the word. We're doing our best to bring you guys really good content, and like we mentioned in the past, we have some pretty interesting guests lined up that we think you'll like. So just keep an eye out for that. And now that the All-Star weekend is over and basketball's starting up again, we can all stop watching college basketball and start watching good basketball, and we'll start bringing you some good content on DallasBasketball.com as well. So just keep an eye out for that.
Yep, and if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can find me at Dalton_Trigg. You can find Matt at Matt Galatzan. That's MattGalatzan. And if you want to follow the podcast itself, you can follow us at Step Back Mavs on Twitter. But again, can't thank you guys enough. You've been great. We've been overwhelmed by all the support. You guys have a good rest of the week, good weekend. We'll catch you next week and recap everything that's going on with the Mavs. Y'all have a good one.
But yeah, I'm the GOAT, this game get cold. Yeah, you might need a coach, your friends turn into your foe. But I'ma just roll, gotta keep rolling your boat. Yeah, I swear I give them hope. I say I'm cleaner than the soap. This time of year proves who will really sink or float. For yeah, real. It's the Mavericks, all about action. Don't do no acting, no Samuel Jackson. Dirk at the ball, you know that it's magic. Post move deadly, yeah, get tragic. Yeah, it's the Mavericks, all about action. Don't do no acting, no Samuel Jackson. Dirk at the ball, you know that it's magic. Post move deadly, yeah, get tragic. You know, in this game, it's a lot of grit. You know what I'm saying? Proves who has integrity. Late nights, early mornings, but we all want the trophy at the end of the day. And that's the beauty of this game, because at the end of the day, only the real gonna float, man, for real. You either sink or you float. Only the real gonna float.